Hey y'all, Shelly with Itty Bitty Farm. Today is December 15th and I am going to can apples. If you remember a prior video I had, you will know that I purchased a bushel of apples from a farm, an apple farm, when I was in Virginia, which was at the end of September. So we're about 2.5 months out and I've started to realize my apples are, we've eaten most of the bushel fresh, and I've started to realize that the apples are starting to get a little soft, so I want to go ahead and get them in the jar before they go bad. I've washed my hands, I've got all my tools going here, and we'll get started. So I've got an apple core peeler slicer here. I've got a couple of tests just to see. My apples are really soft, so it is taking more skin off than I'd like, but you know, we can make vinegar out of that. So what you do is I've got it clamped to the table and you stick it through the core and then you just roll it and this thing will peel it. And as it comes out the end here, it cuts it, and you will see it slices it in spirals. So what I do is I cut down one side so I can have rings. And I'm putting those in a little bit of lemon water here and just to keep them from turning brown. And then what we'll do is take these skins and the peels, and those will either go to the chickens or become apple scrap vinegar, probably apple scrap vinegar, because there's so much flesh left on these since these apples are so soft. I'm going to do one more from that angle and then I'll show you a different angle. From this angle, you can see I have a tray to catch the apple skins, and I just push this on here and then we turn it. Oh, I went the wrong way because I'm left-handed. Oh no, I gotta pull this back. Sorry, forgot. All right, so push that on there tight, and then I'm left-handed, so now this does not do a good job of staying on this table. It slides, so I have to hold it. And my bowl isn't catching anything, is it? And so there you go. The skins, all right, the skins are going to go down here in my catch tray, and then when I pull this back, pop my apple core off. Trying to get you a good angle where you can really see what's going on here. So I'm going to go in a little tighter on this from this angle. And you'll see what I mean. These apples are really soft, so they're all right. Hold this down. And just spin it all the way to the end. And then we've got our ring of apples here. Now we've got apple slices. Some of them fell down here. Now I did do an experiment before where I did not peel the apples. I just put the apple skins in with the apples. And so if we wanted to do that, this thing clicks off like that. And then all we would be doing is cutting our apple and coring it, which is going to save a lot of our apple here. So you can see we have the skin still on it. I'll save that for the apple scrap vinegar. And so forth and so on. Messy, but easy and fun. Hey y'all. So a funny thing happened while I was processing these apples. I decided to taste the apples that I had canned a few weeks ago and see how the texture was for the apples that had the skin on them. And when I opened the jars, they did not taste good. They were not sweet at all. And so I thought maybe the jar went bad. So I opened another jar and it also did not taste that great. So I decided to open a third jar. So I had 2 jars with the skins on them and the rest of them didn't have skins on them. So I opened a jar without the skins and they're not good. I think it's because 1, I pressure canned them, and 2, I did not put any additional sugar in here. So these are those apples. They're really pretty, but they weren't that great. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and continue to process these apples that I started processing. And I am going to boil them down and add sugar as per the Ball recipe for canning applesauce. And we will go ahead and make the applesauce and not worry about making the apples and then turning them into sauce later, because apparently that did not work. I'm going to use this as my liquid in the apples that I'm going to can now, and I will add the appropriate amount of sugar to water. One of the reasons I admitted that to y'all on film is because I have a really bad habit of not doing anything because I'm afraid of failure. So I wanted to share with you that, so that there may be some others of you out there that are watching this, or my kids or whatever, that think, well, I can't do it. What if I mess up? Well, I messed up and I canned 6 jars of apples. That was my test set. I canned 6 jars of apples that I'm glad I tasted, because these are really delicious apples, but without adding the sugar to them when I canned them, they just are not tasty. So I wouldn't want to give that to somebody and they think, oh, yay, yummy, good apples, and then they're not. How embarrassing. So it's always good to test stuff. And then also, when you make a mistake, you just try to fix it. So I did the research, and the research said, you know, that I needed more sugar in my apples, because my apples are not the sweetest in the world. So although they taste that way when you're munching on them fresh, apparently it does not translate to that when they're canned, as we can see. And also, that pressure canning, not a good idea. I pressure canned those along with, I believe, some broth I was making. And I can tell you right now, the texture is nothing. They're just mush. They don't even have a applesauce texture. So I would definitely not do that again, but live and learn. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I've got, and I did watch a couple of YouTube videos of people that canned apples and left the skin on. And I tend to want to do it that way because, for me, you know, the nutrition is in the skin. And I mean, a lot of the nutrition is in the skin. So I feel like you'd be losing a lot of that if you cut that out. So I'm going to be canning these, since I am making them into applesauce and I'll use an immersion blender. I am going to go ahead and can these with the skins on them. And so that's saving us a lot of time. So I've kicked this thing back that you originally saw me with. And it looks like I'm probably going to have to do 2 batches because this is pretty full. Not sure how many pints I'll end up with. And it will probably be several years worth of applesauce for us. But I have 2 grandbabies and a bunch of other little grand nieces and nephews. So I'm sure we'll find a use for applesauce. So just a reminder what I do with the cores. And I did start taking the skins off, as you know, but I stopped that because I decided this was all going to be applesauce and I didn't mind the skins so much. So I've got a few skins here, mostly apple cores, but I'm going to stuff them all in this gallon jar. seeds and all. I'm not going to let this go to waste. I'm going to make homemade apple vinegar. You could call it apple cider vinegar, but technically there's no cider in here, so it's actually just apple vinegar. I call it apple scrap vinegar. So I'm not going to take anything that's spoiled. Chickens will get those. But I am going to take all the rest of this. And then all we do is fill, when we're making apple scrap vinegar, you just fill it with water above the apples, and there's sugar that goes in here. And the yeast from the skins of the apples and the sugar will create a vinegar. So I will take an old SCOBY that I have and stick in here, and that'll just help it speed it up. If you'd like to see that process, go back to my previous video. Just wanted to reminder what I did. So with the cores removed, I've weighed my apples, and I have about 7 pounds here, and I've reserved 7 pounds, so that's enough. According to the Ball Recipe Canning Guide for applesauce, 7 pounds should yield about 9 pints of applesauce. So we're to add 5 cups of liquid and 2 cups of sugar if we want a medium syrup to go with it. In this case, I'm going to do a medium syrup because I think it's going to need the extra sugar. So we may end up with more than 9 pints because I'm adding back in all the apples that I already canned that I didn't like the flavor of. So far I've put 2 cups of liquid. That's about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in there. Just a hint. That looks like a lot, but it won't be once it cooks down. Once it's added to the entire batch. Now I could put this in my crock pot, not have to watch it. So I've cooked these for about 15 minutes. And I am blending them. Camera battery died, so I had to go ahead and jar these up while I went ahead and mixed both batches together. So I have the proper amount of sugar in each one, and I've already cleaned my rims, and I'm just putting the lids on so I can get started with canning these. These will be water bathed for 10 minutes. So this process won't take very long, but getting the canner hot and ready to go will take a little bit of time. So I'm going to clean my stove here first. I got splatters of apple mess everywhere. So I'm going to clean all that up, and then we'll drop these in the canner and get them on the shelf.